Right. So first of all, welcome again to yet another PTC Talks, where we are so excited today by having Greta Brown from Chalmers University of Technology here for the second time, and for this time for a session on skill sets, defining, measuring, and bridging the gap in the industry. But first, a very quick introduction about myself. My name is Torbjörn Peterson, and I'm the Alliance Manager for PTC in the Nordics, and we are running all these webinars on Fridays every week, same time. But we also invite customers and partners for some inspiration on digital transformation to see what is possible, how to make things happen, and all the past webinars have also been recorded and are to be found on the registration site. The agenda for today is first a very quick overview of PTC by myself, and then Greta will run the show by introducing herself and touch base on a few challenges, how to address these, and then explain some of the business outcomes. And at the end, we're also having a Q&A session, so please keep your questions to the end, or you may also put them in the chat and we will pick them up later. So now over to the next slide with PTC, a quick overview. Greta. So PTC is a global software company with a headquarters in Boston, and we provide market-leading solutions on IoT, augmented reality, PLM, SLM, ALM, and CAD through the digital thread to help companies to accelerate their digital transformation. Now over to you, Greta.
So, hello everyone, also from my side. Today, as Torbjörn said, we will talk about the skill gap in industry and the future of work. And this question has always been very interesting for me. I mean, personally, it has been always a question that I've been very curious. What do I want to become when I grow up? But I think recently this question has become even more interesting because I realized how fast jobs are changing. In fact, studies by the British Council show that more than half of today's students will do jobs that don't yet exist. And when I asked my grandfather how it was for him to work as an architect, he showed me the tools that he used when he worked as an architect. And this tool here, for example, he used to do logarithmic calculations, and all the other tools I could describe to you here. But as we can see, they look very different to what architects use today. My grandfather also came to visit me at my old job, where I was a project leader at a company called Smarta Fabriker. And he tried out virtual reality glasses. And I will never forget how he said, "Oh, if I would have had these glasses when I was an architect back in the days, it would have helped me a lot in my work, instead of only imagining the things we built." So this really shows how much technology changes during one lifetime. And since he retired as an architect, 30 years have passed. So the way he would do his job today looks completely different. And also the skills that he would need to be able to use the technologies that enhance his abilities. So the only thing missing from my grandfather here are the right skills. And of course we could teach him, but maybe in this case we start with getting his internet at home up and running. So this as a little introduction about my interest in this topic and this emerging skill gap in industry, because jobs are changing very quickly and that creates a skill gap. And that is the topic of my research. I'm a PhD student at Chalmers at the Department of Industrial and Material Science here in Gothenburg, Sweden. And today we will talk about the skill set and how to define the skill gap, how to measure a skill gap, and how we will be able to bridge it. And I'm really happy to also in the end discuss with you guys. Skill gaps is actually not a new problem. We have faced skill gaps in all the industrial revolutions, starting from the first industrial revolution where we had water and steam power that was introduced. We went from doing everything by hand, by having machines produce. So jobs completely changed. Then in the second industrial revolution, we had suddenly electricity that could help us to transport products on conveyor belts through the factory. We could also work at night because we could have light. In the third industrial revolution, computers were introduced and robots and electronics, of course, that was a big shift. Automation of repetitive tasks was a given. And of course, again, a lot of fear was awakened among workers, because what are we going to do if now robots are taking some of our tasks? And now we're in the fourth industrial revolution. Everything about what PDC works as well with connectivity, cyber physical systems. So from around 2011, this Industry 4.0 was introduced. So it's quite complex because we have a lot of technologies that interact with each other, and we need high-skilled people that are able to manage these systems, to program these systems, and all do this in an ethical and sustainable way. But actually, of course, we know today that even though those industrial revolutions have eliminated a lot of jobs, they also introduced new ones. So actually the unemployment rates in Europe, for example, and the US have decreased. And now the world is becoming even more complex. There are different disruptions. We have a climate change that is real. Industry stands for around 20% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. We have globalization, we have war causing disruptions in our supply chains. We have demographic change that leads to a decrease in the working population. So we have much less young people between 20 and 25 than 30 to 35, and also even more senior people on the job market that are retiring, and we will have to work with the people that we have. And pandemics as well is an example of the disruptions that we are facing. And all of these things industry has to deal with as well and find solutions. And that's why the European Commission now saw the urge to actually introduce the fifth industrial paradigm, Industry 5.0, where focus shouldn't lie on the technologies. It should lie on three main values: human centricity, resilience, and sustainability. And everything that industry does should be towards these three goals. And right now I'm also part of a working group where we discuss how can policymakers incentivize industry to adopt these values and create solutions. But for me, of course, the topic about skill is here the most important. So what are the skills that the engineers need to actually be able to create solutions that are sustainable, resilient, and human-centric, and use the technologies from the fourth industrial revolution? A World Economic Forum report that was launched this year says that 44% of employees' skills will have to change drastically. So it's a lot of people's skills that are changing and that have to be learned. Actually, 41% of professionals worry that they will fall behind in their jobs if they don't know how to leverage AI. That is a completely new report that came out from Canva. Canva is a company that offers design tools to create visualizations. And the report, I will show you some more insights from this report. They did that with around 4,000 of their employees about AI and how good their employees are at using AI. But I think this is quite a big statement. I think employees realize that they have to use different new tools. I mean, everyone is talking about generative AI right now, but I think it also causes a lot of worry, and that's part of my vision, that I want people that work in industry to have the right skills to do their job, given that their tasks are changing due to those social, ecological, and economic challenges that we just talked about. And I want them to feel supported, to have the right resources and get guidance to get on a successful and motivating learning path, and to understand and bridge the skill gap. So ultimately, there should be no skill gap. just for you, and you can read about this more if you're interested in my thesis, my 3 research questions that guide me in my research are, so how can skill gaps be bridged? That's the ultimate goal. But I understood quite quick that in order to bridge it, we need to know how to measure skill gaps for individuals, but also for a company. What is a person's skill gap, or what is the skill gap of a certain company? And to be able to measure something, we need to know what is this skill gap in the industrial context. To do that, I have been working together with the research community on 5 different papers. I will present to you in short some of the main results from these papers. But first, I would like to introduce to you the 2 projects that I've been working on that give me a lot of insights for my research. And I think for you, it's also interesting to know about these projects because they give very good upskilling opportunities for employees working with technology. So the first project, it's a Sweden-based project, but we also have international customers. It's all in English. It's an upskilling program that 13 Swedish universities have created together. So what you get here is a cutting-edge research transformed into online learning. So you get the newest insights from additive manufacturing, artificial intelligence, collaborative robotics, etc. In modules. So you learn online, and then you have also several live seminars where you can discuss with other learners and with the professors. So this I can really recommend, and feel free to reach out if you want to talk more about this. These are the universities that are involved here. And of course, for me, it's a good base to find out about the learning experiences of these engineers that are enrolled in the program, and how can we improve from education providers' side. And then there's another project that could be interesting for you as well that I'm involved in. It's called the Deep Tech Talent Initiative. It's a EU-funded project, directly funded from the European Union, where the goal is quite ambitious to upskill 1 million people within deep tech. So deep tech, maybe you've heard about it. It's important for the European Union to invest in deep technologies because they are supposed to solve actually the deep societal problems that we have. So for example, climate issues and so on. So here you will also be able to find resources to upskill yourself. There is also a radar that gives insights in how different technologies are emerging and how mature different technologies are. So you could go in here on the homepage of EIT Deep Tech Talent and check out this radar. It's quite interesting, and you can read more about the different technologies. But now I would like to present to you a little bit my findings that I have from my research so far. And I will maybe go through them quite quick, and then we have a little bit more time to discuss. So from a management perspective, we did a literature review to find out what are the key aspects that employers have to work with to actually prepare their workforce for the future of work. And one main aspect here, of course, is skills, but there are a lot of other aspects that managers have to work with. So the leadership as well is changing. Occupational health and well-being is discussed a lot, and how can work-life balance be enhanced. Also the corporate culture that is needed to actually drive a change. Collaboration and communication is changing a lot. We have a lot of new challenge to communicate, and of course, when we now during the pandemic shifted to remote work, a lot has changed in that sense, and managers have to be prepared and find new ways to motivate their team. There are different work forms. We're talking about gig economy, for example, and sharing economy. And all these things, of course, lead to new requirements on employers, but also on the employees. Technology, infrastructure, and strategy. So for all the new technology that is needed in the workplace, managers need to find strategies how to implement them. The physical workplace and the work environment is changing, and there's a lot of research going on how can we create motivating environments. And lastly, also digital organization and network. Since we share a lot of data between companies, there are a lot of discussions right now. How can we build trust? How do we work in a more unhierarchical way? How do we build new hierarchies and network? So there's a lot of topic, but a key takeaway here is that also for managers, of course, there's a lot of skills that are needed to implement these things. And also for the employees within these 9 topics that we identified, skills are needed. So it's not only technical skills to actually, implement technology, but also a lot of soft skills that are important. Then I would like to talk a little bit more about what is the skill gap. I've talked about a skill gap now quite a lot, but actually in the research community, and also when I read more like popular media articles, the term has been used in very many different ways. But to sum up, one could say that it's about the transformations in industry that lead to changes for education providers, employees, and employers. And these 3 stakeholders risk missing out on something. And that leads to a skill gap. And the skill gap lies between the supply and the demand of skills. For education providers, there could be a gap of, are we supplying the right courses that industry requests? For employee, the question is, am I offering the right skill? Am I possessing the right skills that my employer requires from me? And from employers, the question is, do we have the right skilled people to actually reach our new business goals? And all that results in this skill gap. So to sum up, we have a changing industry, and then parallel to that, we also have changing demographics that lead to 3 different gaps. So the skill gaps between the skills that employers demand and the skills their employees possess. We also have a skills shortage, which is often used as the lack of available and suitably skilled people for open positions of jobs that employers want to fill. And we have the education gap. So the gap between the skills that an education provider offer and what employers require. And since we have this demographic change, the skill shortage for me has become a little bit, of course, still an important topic to recruit the right people, but it will be harder and harder to recruit new people with the right skills, because I think companies have to work with the people they have, because this is where there are more people because of the demographic change. And it's important to include the perspective of these 3 actors, stakeholders, employers, employees, and education provider. I will jump over this slide a little bit. I will just give you a short hint on this. So as I said, the next question was, how can skill gaps be measured? Because I think in the project that I'm in, it has been a huge question. How can we actually measure skill gaps? How do you measure skills? But then also, how do you measure skill gaps? And researchers have been doing skill gap measurements, and you can see that they have been asking different people about skill gaps. So students, employees, or their employers. They have asked education provider, or taking information from literature, also from databases. There are databases, one European called ESCO, where all job profiles in the European Union are listed with the tasks and the skills, but also from professional social networks like LinkedIn. So you can use different databases to make to set up a skill gap measurement of a person and use different methods. But I will not go so much deeper into that now. Yeah, so what we have been trying out now is to make a skill gap analysis by asking about certain skills. So this, for example, is from the Engineer 4.0 project, where we have 15 main skills that people can learn our platform, and we want to let them assess themselves. How important is the skill for me, and how well do I perform on those skills? And ideally, we would also ask the employer to assess their employee in the same way, and the skills that are most important for you, but you have low performance, that would be your skill gap then. There is a difficulty in that. Also, the same report that just came out by Canva says that sometimes people who do self-assessment about their skills or knowledge, in this case, it was about AI or generative AI, you exaggerate the skills that you have. So when you let people self-assess their skills, there is a risk of this not being 100% true. So that's something that I want to investigate more. I see that time is running out, so I will jump over these a little bit. But another study that we did within the program showed that adapting learning to the individual is very important, because it motivates people to feel that they are on the right learning journey, and that the interactions and the way how you learn is adapted to your learning style. And that's why we also did a study about how can we match people to the right learning path, and that is something that I'm investigating right now as well. Because we need to find the right learning path for each individual, so that it doesn't become overwhelming, but also not too boring. In this report that I've been talking about, they also say that 65% of the respondents feel that the learning about a new generative AI tool is overwhelming, and 54% feel pressured to use generative AI to keep pace with the change. So in order not to feel stressed, but really feel that you're supported, we want to be able to support the learner by giving them the learning pathway that they need. So that is something we try to do right now. Yes, so to sum up and have some time for your questions, the skill gap in industry is between the skills that employers require and the skills that employees possess. To measure the skill gap, we could use a skills framework that we set up about a certain job profile or a certain industry, and do a performance importance analysis that I showed you with an employee. And to bridge skill gaps, we need to overcome motivational challenges and fears and different other challenges for the employees, so the learner themselves, but also for employers who have to think about many different things that are changing in terms of work and how they can support their employees. But also we need to involve the education providers who actually supply the learning, and that they do that in the way that they support the learner in the best way. So now I would like to open up for some questions in the next minutes that we have. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me or connect on LinkedIn, or directly email me. And there's also here a link where you can find my publications and read more about it. So thank you a lot.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Greta, for sharing this very interesting findings in this super hot topic. So, as you said, I mean, let's open up, I mean, for questions from you listening in here. So, if you have any, just raise your hand. Otherwise, I had some questions actually here earlier also, and that was, I mean, regarding what specific industries are having the biggest gaps in your view and you, based on your experience?
That's a very good question. So I think all industries face a gap of talents. Not all industries, but I mean, in manufacturing industry, we know for sure that we need those high-skilled people to actually implement the new technologies. But also in healthcare, we know that we need a lot of workers, and I think that's the thing that now when we will have less young people, there will be a fight for the people that are on the job market. So I think for an employer, it's very important to think about. So first of all, of course, how can we work with the people we already have and help them to upskill so that they can do the new things that we want them to be able to do, but also to, of course, find way to be an attractive employer and attract the young people, because I think that's a challenge in itself. How do we attract generations at what are the values? What do they what are they passionate about? How can we make them get up in the morning and feel that's the workplace they want to go to?
Thank you. And I had another question here also. I mean, leading, I mean, a little bit, I mean, back to your earlier question here. I mean, how do you actually, I mean, get sort of, I mean, everybody on board? I mean, like, I mean, senior people, I mean, are they, I mean, a little bit, I mean, harder to tackle, and how do they get them, I mean, to really, I mean, take on new challenges?
Yeah, very good question. I think that's so individual. I think a lot of people feel quite overwhelmed and stressed and a little bit maybe unseen, disappointed about all my experience that I have, maybe not always is treated in a respectful way as well. And I think for them it's very important that they can feel that they are still valued, but that they can benefit from using new technologies. I think as humans, we are not naturally made for change. It's often easier to stick with the way we are used to do things, with your routines, and you know how things work. And when you have to use a new software, we all know about it. It can get quite annoying in the beginning, and you're like, oh, I don't know how to set up a meeting in this new software or whatever.
Right.
Even sometimes if it's just the update.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of responsibility in the leaders to get the people on board and motivate them in the way that they need. But yeah, as I said, that's a skill itself, to be a leader that can adapt the leadership to each and every one.
Sure. Thanks. We have a question also from Jakob. Please.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Yes. My question was just a follow-up question on the question from Tobbe regarding the different industries. Do you see, you're referring to some European studies, do you see differences across Europe, or is it kind of the same across Europe? Do we see somewhere where they have been kind of more successful adapting things?
Good one.
Good question. I mean, in general, the Nordic countries are quite good at adapting new technologies. If we look at different indices, it's Sweden and Finland who are mostly on the top of digital adaptation. It's quite hard to say. I haven't really seen differences between the countries here. I think if I would say something, that would be only a feeling. I don't have like a statistic or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm. Can you elaborate why Finland and Sweden are better than anyone else, or better in the high end of adaptability? Is it because the organizations, the companies are doing a bigger investment, or is it because people in general are more, ready to do change?
Interesting question. Good one.
Yeah, very good question. This index, I can send it to you, but they are looking at the society more, so not at companies in that country. They are looking more at the individual itself. How well are you adopting new technologies? Like, for example, in Sweden, we quite quickly get rid of the physical money, so we pay with Swish and with Apple Pay or whatever. So these kind of transformations go very quick, and of course that I think it's quite closely connected with innovation. I mean, Sweden and Finland, for example, are also quite high in that. So how well do companies do in terms of innovation? So I think it is connected in a way as well with the companies, but that index that I was talking about looks more at the society level, how quick people adapt new products.
Right. Thanks.
Thank you.
I had one last question. I think we have some few more seconds for that, and that relates a little bit to what you said regarding utilizing AI, but also are there any kind of other technologies used in reskilling and upskilling, like in metaverse, for instance? Is that something specifically that you're looking into?
We have colleagues here at Chalmers as well that look into that. I think research about using metaverse for upskilling is quite like something that is emerging right now. And we had the bachelor thesis with you, Torbjörn, about using metaverse, and I think it is something that we need more empirical data on, because there has not been enough research. There are some quite obvious use cases of using it when you haven't built a factory, for example, to be able to train people before, especially when we have to do rapid upskilling for a new battery manufacturing here in Gothenburg, for example. So I think that's a very interesting question. I think it's something we should do tests with and see, does this work, and how can we do it in a way that helps people? Yeah,
that's a good idea. So time is actually unfortunately running out, and many thanks everyone for joining, and of course a special thanks to you, Greta, for sharing a lot of super duper interesting findings on what you're studying here. So with that, I hope to see you back already actually next week for the PTC Talks, and then it will be about profitability and sustainability for a better world by a priori. So stay tuned for that, and have a fantastic weekend, everyone. See you back. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.